okay. He's like, you got to go to school and get an education. That's what you got to do. Cause he didn't go to school. So he was a big influence on my life. So, after, graduating from high school, Desert Storm was kicking off, and I was like, for countries at war, I really got to go and do my job. And so I talked to my brother, and he was like, yeah, I get it. If you got to do it, you got to do it. So I joined the Army Reserves at that time, and actually trained as a medic. No, I lied. Not yet. I trained as a pharmacy tech first. So I went down, did basic training at Fort Knox in Tennessee. Then I went to Fort Sam Houston for 6 months, did some training there. And then I came home, and I actually then served a mission for my church for 2 years. So I went to Sydney, Australia. And when I was there, I kind of was like, I didn't really look forward to coming back and being in the military. So I thought, well, I'm just going to go do my minimum and just, do my time in the reserves and get out. And I got back, and because before I was even out of training, Desert Storm was over. So I was kind of like, oh, I joined the country, and the whole reason I joined is not even there anymore. So I was kind of like, well, at least I got the GI Bill. I'll get a little bit of school paid for. So I was going to school, and the nag wouldn't go away. I remember I was on my mission in Australia. Somalia happened with, Black Hawk Down, that whole scenario. Yeah. I didn't know anything about it. So I was sitting in a history class, in an American history class or something of that nature. And that's where I first learned about it. And, I saw the bodies of one of the pilots being drugged through the street. And right then I was like, Jake, you're fighting it. Stop it. Just go join the military. You know what you need to do. Just do it. Stop fighting it. Right. So I stopped kicking against the pricks, if you will, and said, all right, I'm going. But I was like, but I don't want to do the Army. In the meantime, I've been training as a medic, and I was like, well, I want to do something different. Pharmacy is boring. I'm not really a good pill counter. I get bored. So so they offered us to be able to train to be a medic. So I'm like, yeah, I'll be a combat medic. And then I went through that training, and actually had to use a little bit of that in my work. I worked at a steel place while I was going to school to put myself through college, along with the GI Bill. And there was an accident there where a chain broke when we were hoisting a big steel plate up, and it hit the guy who was standing next to me in the face and ripped his face up, and he knocked him out, and he fell down into the steel. So I had to grab him out and do some first aid on him. And they came, and the ambulance came, and they took care of him and stuff. And then I was like, after the aftershock came, and all the adrenaline came down, and all of a sudden I was like shaky and everything. I'm like, do I really want to do this for, in the military? So I was at school one day and walked past the Air Force recruiting table, and I was like, hey, flying jet sounds cooler than, seeing people shot up and stuff. So I walked over to the ROTC, Air Force ROTC office, and said, hey, can I join? And I actually tried to join the Army ROTC first, because I already was Army. It made sense to me. And they were like, I'm not sure what level he was at the time, but he just said, well, sure, you can join us, but there's only a 25% chance you'll get a commission upon graduation. So I was like, well, why would you do it then?
Really? I thought everybody got a commission if they went through the ROTC program.
That's kind of what I thought. Maybe he just didn't like me. I don't know. That's okay. He just didn't like me for some reason. I rubbed him the wrong.
He's probably looking at it from the standpoint like, we already got your ass, so I don't really give a shit if you want to do this or not. Like, you already belong to the Army, so take a hike, dude.
Yeah. So I thought that was odd. So I walked to the other end of the hall where the Air Force ROTC was, and I said, hey, I'm currently enlisted in the Army Reserves, but I want to be in the Air Force. Can I get commissioned here? And they were like, sure, sign here.
It was really that easy?
Oh, yeah. It was. They were like, sure, go ahead. And they did that, and they just took me in, and yeah, that was it. So I was like,
just like out processed from the Army Reserves, and now you're a ROTC Air Force cadet, I guess, getting ready to get a commission when you graduate. That was really that. I figured there'd be so much more red tape with I mean, it's because you did 26 years, so you know the red tape I'm talking about from the military. Like,
Yeah.
it's never that easy to do anything
Oh,
ever. Like, even getting in, I tried to do what a buddy of mine did, who is now Air Force, ironically. So it's cool that we're having this conversation. But Alex Burkle is my inspiration for joining the Army, and he joined the Army Reserves at 17, went to basic between his junior and senior summer, right, and then came back and then went active duty when he graduated. And I tried to do the exact same thing, but I missed it by one day. I didn't go to MEPS. If I would have gone to MEPS one day earlier, I would have shipped, done the whole basic training, my summer thing, followed his path exactly. And like, that's what I mean. It wasn't even that easy for me. They have to come back, reorganize my contract because I couldn't ship. Now I'm on delayed entry. It changed a whole bunch of things in my contract, which we won't get into here. But I'm just amazed that you were already in the reserves. I'm thinking the reserves probably don't want to let you go. And they're just like, yeah, sure, here, sign this, and you can be an ROTC cadet.
Yeah, the reserves, they fought a little bit. They tried to not let me go. And what was really interesting is that I put in 3 packages to go to PLDC this is a course over a span of 6 years, of course, we're talking.
Right.
That this all is transpiring as I'm going to school. And I tried to get into PLDC. I think they still call it that. I don't know if they still call it that in the Army.
No, I think it's. I was one of the last people when I went to go to PLDC where it was a month long, and then they changed it to WLC, and now I think it's even something different. I don't know what it is now.
I'm old, I guess. I've been through a few iterations.
Basically, for those listening, you tried to go to the first leadership school that you truly need before. It used to be you couldn't get promoted to E5 without this leadership school, right? And you typically would go as an E4. That way you could board and be, a KD complete or whatever, E4, so you could go to the E5 board. When combat ramped up, that very quickly kind of went away. You just couldn't get promoted past E5 without that. And like my situation, I go to PLDC and then straight to BNOC afterwards.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you just went back to back.
Yeah, just cruising through it,
Yeah, I'd submitted 3 packages and they kept on losing my package or whatever. I could never find out what was going on with it. So, and going through the process to get out of the reserves, they keep on telling me that I can't. And one day I was standing in the office on the phone and they were trying to tell me that, oh, you can't, you have to fill your obligation. And I was like, not if I go to a commissioning program, you have to release me conditionally. And if I don't finish the commissioning program, then I go back in.
So that was the catch. That makes sense.
And they're like, oh no, you have to finish your obligation. And there was a major that was in the ROTC program, the Air Force side, was standing next to me and he overheard the conversation. He just said, give me the phone. I was like, all right. He said, hey, this is Major Courtney. Who's your boss? Let me talk to the officer in charge of you. And she's like, it's this person. And he got to the decision maker and just said, here's what's happening. Here's what we're doing. And they said, okay, sounds good. Got off the phone and like, all right, you're good. And I was like,
sweet.
Whoa, all right. I never experienced that kind of support before either. Like I just been said, nope, that's the system. I never had anybody pick up the phone and go to bat for me, on my behalf before. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. So yeah, I joined the Air Force and then I realized that to be a pilot, it was a 10-year commitment. And my intent was like, hey, I know that I was supposed to join the military, but I wasn't supposed to stay in for that long. So I'm going to go for I had to compete for a pilot slot, which I probably could have been competitive. I don't know. I didn't try. So I'm like, I'm going to just shoot for something with a lower commitment so I don't have to stay in that long. It's just what I'm going to do until I figure out what I want to be when I grow up. So
right.
I did that, and everybody would tell me like, oh, you're the type that always stay in for 20 years. I was like, no, I don't. Like, yeah.
So you fought it the whole way, and it's funny because you have 26 years of military service.
Yeah. So I joined and then commissioned, went active duty as an intel officer. First station was doing Predators down in Vegas, and then I went from there to actually Edwards Air Force Base. Interesting enough, where then I went and deployed back again with the Predators, doing secret squirrel missions that I can't talk about that everybody knows. but
Of course.
it was fun. It was pretty cool mission. I got back from that deployment, and like I'd been home for about a week in the office, and I got a notice that I was supposed to deploy again. And I deployed to Bosnia before that, so I already deployed twice, and I've been there for 4 years. And I was like, well, that's kind of crazy. And yeah, I got a notice saying, hey, you got to get ready to deploy again. You got to go fill this AEF rotation. And I was like, I just got back. And so I went down to the deployment office. Like, I just got back. I can't be going again. And they said, oh, you volunteered for the other one. I was like, I did? I didn't know I had a choice. I just was told I was supposed to go, so I went. And like, oh, no, see here, you volunteered, so you have to go fill this AEF bucket. And I said, no, I don't. And I just put in my separation paperwork that day, and I'm separating. I was like, I'm not going to keep on leaving. So I did, and then I thought, oh crap, what am I going to do? I'm getting out. I didn't really have a plan. I was more of a knee-jerk reaction. And I remember in Intel school, I learned about this squadron in Utah, where I'm from. There was an Intel squadron. They had this cool flying mission. So I looked them up, picked up the phone and made a call and said, hey, I'm getting off active duty, and I want to come and come back to Utah. Do you have anything open? And they said, well, actually, we are hiring some positions. So I was incredibly blessed. I went right from active duty. I rolled right into an active guard reserve position, an AGR position, into the guard. So I was still full time. Moved my family back home, so I had my support network. And then I started deploying even more.
Of course, yeah, because GWAT started, right?
Yeah, it was already going at that point. That was in 2004, so I'd already been, supporting GWAT stuff. But we were also doing counter-drug missions down to South America and GWAT, so we were on this constant rotation. So each year I was usually spending time in South America and in Pakistan, and then we did some stuff in Africa. So I was on the road a lot. But it was different for whatever reason. When I get to choose, when they say, hey, here's our deployment schedule, which ones do you want? And I get to choose it, it didn't seem as bad as being told I had to deploy. So,
as somebody who did 4 total combat deployments for almost 5 years, overseas, I think that's probably accurate. I think it wouldn't have been so bad if I got to choose, but it was very much a situation where I'm on the parade field coming back from the first one with orders to go on the second one. Like, hey, this is what's happening 11 months from today. Like, you can bet your bottom dollar that you're going to be gone. And every single time it was like that. Show up at Fort Lewis after I PCS. Hey, guess what? You're going to Afghanistan. Like, you don't get a choice, So I relate to that. I think it would have been way cooler if I could have picked, because, at some point you just start accepting it. Like, it's easier to be deployed than it is to be home, I thought, anyway. I don't know how you feel about it. I've talked to a lot of people on here, and that's kind of the general consensus, is because you really don't have anything to worry about when you're deployed. The rules are very simple: kill or be killed, mission first. That's kind of it, right? So eat, sleep, do your job, work out, and rinse and repeat. No worrying about paying bills, no worrying about what's for dinner, no worrying about I've got this appointment at this time at this place. How am I going to get there? Like, that all melts away and life becomes really simple. You don't even have to be an adult. Do you agree?
I do. Yeah. Other than the fact that often I was the deployed detachment commander. So
shit. That's rough.
So I was, refereeing, babysitting, trying to work out logistics, trying to grow up in my own right. So making stupid decisions, stupid mistakes, and then going, that was stupid. Right. Now let me learn from that and try to grow and, do a little bit better. So, yeah. So it was definitely easier, just because I didn't. There's all the stuff at home I couldn't do anything about, so I didn't have to do much. But yeah, when I was deployed, I was busy. I was, still had a lot of responsibility, but it was simplified because people were detained, right? And being in the Air Force in our mission, we didn't leave the base unless we were on an airplane that left, drill holes in the sky for 14 hours and come back and land and, go shower, work out, do it all over again. So that's what we weren't, people were like, oh, did you ever get shot at? And I was like, well, we did, but I'd find out after we landed, oh, on approach, we took some surface fire. And I'd be like, oh, were we in danger?
No, probably not. Small arms, I imagine.
Yeah. I remember flying over Africa. We'd be flying, doing stuff over Somalia and doing some counter counterterrorism, but also the pirate stuff was going on back in the day. And we'd be flying. We see all these. First, we're like, why does everybody have swimming pools down there? Because we saw these little blue squares that look like swimming pools. Then we realized it was actually the rooftops. And then they're like, man, these guys like to celebrate a lot. Look at all those fireworks. And finally, the loadmaster came over as I was looking out the little window. We had a big system we rolled on the back of a C-130, like a semi-box trader. We rolled and had all of our equipment on there, and we'd do our collection with that. But we go out every now and then and look out the window. And I was like, man, what's all the celebration? What's all the fireworks for? And he started laughing. Oh, there's people just shooting at us, but we're too high, so they can't really do anything. I was like, oh, they don't like us here. And like, they probably don't even know what we're doing. They're just shooting at us because we're a plane flying over. I was like, oh.
So I'm curious to know, like, what were your perceptions of the differences between being in the Army and being in the Air Force? Because I do, like I said, the guy that I looked up to when I was in high school that kind of really helped inspire me to join, he is now way up there in the Air Force. I don't know how his transition went. I honestly haven't talked to him in over 20 years just because, you know, how the military careers go and you lose touch, whatever. But like, also, I asked that question because my sister and her husband are both Air Force. You know, my sister just got out at 10 years as a major. My brother-in-law got out a couple of years ago as a major. They're both in those AGR jobs now where they somehow have worked out this deal where they go for like 8 weeks at a time during the summer, get all of their training, whatever in, and then they don't worry about it for the next year. And so like when people come to me for advice, knowing that I have a military career, like, hey, my son's thinking about joining the Army, you know, what would your advice be to him? My advice is always to this day, go to college, join an ROTC program, get it paid for, whatever, be an officer, because your life is so much better, at least from my perspective in the Army as an officer. You have more opportunity. You're going to get a lot more useful skills that are going to translate well or better into the civilian world. And I know we're going to get into your transition and all of that on this show because that's what this is about. But largely, I think that officers have an easier time, you know, a lot more networking opportunities. You're not just a little enlisted grunt for a lot of years before, you know, you really get some opportunities to understand all of those skills. And so I'm curious from your perspective, what were the differences that you noticed from the Army and the Air Force? And I'm sure you're probably biased because you did do 20 years with the Air Force. So you probably love the Air Force a lot more than you love the Army. I still love the Army. But if I did have my career to go over and do it again, change none of the deployments or any of that, I would have been in the Air Force and I would have been a JTAC strictly for, well, JTACs are really freaking cool and what they do, but also strictly for the amount of bonus money they were getting when I was overseas every single time. I'd be fucking loaded right now.
They were, it's pretty awesome. And between you and me, if I was going to do it over again, I might have been a JTAC too, or at least a combat rescue officer. If I would have started out that way, that's the route I would have went. I've always been athletic and adventurous, and I like the challenge. In fact, this morning I was just on a hike, and it was kind of an easy hike, so I decided to make it harder by trying to scale up the mountain for a way, ways.
You're still in Utah, right?
Yeah, I'm still in Utah. Yeah.
Oh man, I was in Utah in July and climbed a mountain, and it was amazing. Man, it was awesome. I just couldn't handle being in the heat at the bottom of the mountain because it was like 112 when I was there. That whole week where you were just in triple digits. I was out in Ogden.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be toasty. Right now the leaves are changing.
Yeah, I know. You guys probably got some beautiful scenery going on out there.
Yeah, it's a complete reset. So I go on a hike or two every week to make sure that while the weather's good, because I need it for my mental health and clarity and rejuvenation.
Everybody needs it for their mental health and clarity. They just don't or refuse to accept it.
Yeah, I realized a little while ago that our mental health is just like our physical health. If you neglect it, it's going to come back and bite you. So take care of yourself mentally and physically, spiritually. It's all one. We're all one. We're all one being wrapped up in in a fleshy body. So
Yeah. So what were the major differences you noticed between the Air Force and the Army?
well, first of all, I was the biggest difference. I was an how do you say? I was very immature. I was just a selfish, self-serving little punk when I was in the Army. So I'm going to caveat everything I say with that. So everything that happened towards me, I thought was like, it was all about me. And so I just had a really bad attitude. Um, Even so though, I had some really awesome leaders in the Army that I still think back on. I'm like, that guy, I had one guy that I just was like, I had a bunch of stuff going on. I was in school. I was super busy. And a drill weekend was, we had to do a Friday drill. And I was like, I got stuff to do. I can't do a Friday drill. We had a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It was a 3-day drill. And so the guy called me and on Thursday, I said, hey, you just need to make sure, remember we have this, we have a drill Friday, Saturday, Sunday this month. And I was like, I'm not going on Friday. I can't make it. And he kind of said, oh, what do you got going on? And he just kind of talked me through a little bit. And he just said, he's like, hey, Jake, you know what the right decision is. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, you have to do it. You know what the right decision is. And I'm going to trust you're going to make it. And if I don't, I'll be a bit disappointed, but I still believe in you. And that's how he ended the call. And I was like, oh, dang.
So of course, that gut punch, right?
Yeah. So of course I showed up, and as soon as he saw me, he's like, I knew you'd be here, Jake. I knew you would. And I was like, man, you're the only one. I didn't know I would. Like, I was just like, oh yeah, I got to be there. And he made it fun and made it a lot more interesting. And he changed my attitude and really helped me out a lot. So it was really good leadership. But he makes some good points about the difference between being an officer and being enlisted. It's obviously a little bit better life. The pay's obviously significantly different.
Significantly better.
Yeah. And that was one thing. And even when I was enlisted in the Army, I was like, the only way I'd ever be full-time is if I was an officer in the Air Force, because then I could feel I could take care of my family. I could have a family and take care of them. And that's it. And I always followed up with, but that will never happen. Of course, which means it happened. I manifested that whether I wanted to or not as soon as I said that. But so that happened. But really, in the Air Force, I think enlisted are actually treated a little bit differently, because typically their skill sets that they have that actually are really transferable in the outside, because they're very technical. And as you know, like technical skills will translate very well outside of the military, even if you're not an officer, if you're enlisted. And so I think they're treated a little bit differently, because I think we had to work a little bit harder to keep our enlisted in, especially when the economy is good. And you're like, I thank you for letting me make this, $26,000 a year, but I can go get a job out there making, $80,000 a year, doing the same thing I'm doing here, and get treated a lot better, and not to salute people. Right. So you kind of had to work through some stuff and just be like, keep bringing it back to purpose. Okay, you could do that if you're coin-operated, if all you care about is money, right? Or you could stay here and do something important that's bigger than yourself, and still do that later on in life when you get to that point. And we need you as a leader, right? We need you to help lead and stuff. So I think in the Air Force, you have to treat the enlisted guys a little bit differently in a lot of different areas. And I was in the intel field, and in the Guard, when I was full-time Guard, before I retired from, we were a linguist squadron. So I was working with guys that spoke 4 or 5 languages. They were just freaking smart, way smarter than I was. And I was, sometimes I'd be like, hey, I'm a leader. Where do they go? And,
right.
So I had to do a little differently than I think maybe in the Army they did. So
I kind of agree, because that was my perception of the Air Force my entire career, and then being around it while my sister was in, and just seeing it's. I like that you kind of break down why the enlisted are kind of treated differently than maybe the enlisted like I was when I was in the Army, because I always picture, when I would see Air Force, I remember very distinctly when I was medevac through Rammstein, my 3rd deployment. we had a couple of Air Force guys that were there, and they were pissed because the Army was in charge, and we had to do like 3 accountability formations a day, and they're just pitching a fit. They don't want to put on a military uniform. And one of the E6s that was there, I mean, he obviously complied because military bearing and all of that, but he broke it down for me, and he's like, dude, we don't do this in the Air Force. Like, we don't do formations. We PT on our own. And it's like, so I chalked it up to like the enlisted guys, they get to play by big boy rules, and they're held accountable to themselves, by their leaders. And basically the Army is just a micromanaging fuck show. Like, that's really what it is. If you're an enlisted guy, I mean, you'll have a formation. I would have, 5:30 fucking war room meeting, then 6:30 PT formation, 8 o'clock PT release formation, be back at 9 o'clock for fucking work call formation. Then you got fucking 1300 lunch formation. Then you got fucking formation after you come back from lunch. And then you got COB fucking formation, supposed to be at 1700, usually at 1900, who knows? Like, so it was formation after formation, constantly, up your ass about where you're at and what you're doing, even if there's nothing to do. Okay, go draw your weapons out of the arms room and clean them. No, the Air Force guys are going home. Like, there's nothing else to do. You know what I mean? So for those who want to know why I won't recommend the Army for enlisted in particular, it's because of that. Like, the Air Force, you can go be treated like an adult, not like a child at, shit that was going on when I was getting out in 2015 at 30 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I hate to, because I love the Army. I think the Army is awesome. That's where I got my start. In fact, to finish out really quick my family story, after I joined, my little brother joined, and then my other little brother, he joined. My other brother joined the Army Guard, even though I said don't. He did it anyway. My other brother joined the Navy Reserves. Actually, they have Navy Reserves here in Utah, so he joined the Navy Reserves and served for I think 10 years there. My other brother retired. Retired as a lieutenant colonel from the Army Guard. And we kind of became a military family, just, I don't know, out of accident, I think. And a couple nephews joined, and one's still in. I bet it's really fun. But that, I think that is kind of the difference. I think when you get the technical side, and that's why I like the Air Force too. And when we did some exercises in Korea, so I took my Korean linguist over there, and which is awesome. We go there, we do these joint exercises, and the Army would be in charge of them. And I was just like, really? Like, there would be like, they'd be spoon feeding us this, and I'd be like, hey, give us the instructions and we can do this. I promise you. Right? So it was always, so at the end, I was kind of joking around with the Army guys. So I brought in sippy cups and just said, hey, here's sippy cups. Because we're all kids here, so we can't drink in big people cups. So I put these, so we could have them by our computers and stuff. And I don't think they thought it was as funny as I did, but I was just in good nature, and I was joking with them and stuff. But yeah, and really it's because the nature of what the Army enlisted guys are typically doing. It's usually more direct combat. There's not a lot of direct combat for the Air Force side, right? JTACs, Crows, PJs, yeah, those guys.
Kind of about it, right? Like, you don't have a whole lot of combat arms, quote unquote, in the Air Force.
No, you got your security police, but they still won't.
They're just cops. Like, let's be honest, they're just cops. No,
friends, I love them to death, but yeah, they're not really in combat. So
I mean, at least your entry control points on posts and all of that are actually controlled by security forces. The Army has way moved away from that. And I remember infantry battalions would be stuck on fucking ECP control for the MPs. We would come down on red cycle once every 3 or 4 months, depending, on who was gone on post, what post you're on. And you just have dumb little privates out there that are just mad as hell because they're giving up, ridiculous. I mean, these are ridiculous shifts too, because you'll be stuck on it for like a month at just running constant 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts. And it's just miserable. So yeah, I get it. At least you guys at least employ the professionals at the entry control points. Let's move into your transition, man, because this is really what this show is all about. And having done 26 years, whether that's in the Guard or the reserves or active duty, I mean, you're in an AGR spot. I assume you stayed AGR the whole time you were in the Air Force, correct? Yeah, so it might as well be just like active duty. So now you're going to go through those transition woes that we all go through. So let's talk about what were some of your biggest challenges when transitioning out back to civilian life.
First of all, for me, it was deciding when, like, hey, when do I start planning? When do I start getting ready for this? And then two, what I ran into, and I talking to other people in the military that have transitioned out, kind of the same thing. A lot of us stayed in for 20 years because we still weren't sure we wanted to be when we grew up, right?
I totally agree with that, man, because when I was med boarded, that's exactly where I was at. I was like, I had planned to be in for at least 22 years, and I was med boarded at almost 13. So I still got like 8 years left, 9 years left. You know what I mean? Like, there's no forward thinking going on in my brain. Like, I'm going to be an infantry soldier till I'm 40. Like, that's what's happened.
Yeah. And, so yeah, it's kind of a hard thing to do. So the biggest challenges I was facing was, one, what do I do? I didn't know what I wanted to do. My degree wasn't specific. I have a degree in geography, and my master's degree is from Air University, and it's the art and science of military. Sorry, basically it's like military studies.
You know, it's a great degree when you can't remember the title of it.
I know, I can't remember the name.
I love it.
Centric. So I was kind of like, oh crap, what should I do? So I went through like a PMP course. Never took the test, but I went through the course and then started.
How boring was that?
What's that?
How boring was that?
Oh.
Yeah, I know because I just went through kind of a quick down and dirty for agile project management when I got my LSS green belt to make myself competitive for EBV through IVMF. And dude, I was like, no, this is definitely not for me. This is a check the block thing. I'll get it and I'll be done.
But agile is more interesting than the whole PMP, waterfall stuff. At least agile is a little bit more interesting, but still, it's not.
My brain just doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? Like, I need to be doing something, not spreadsheeting and statisticking and.
Yeah, I can make myself do it, but I have to make myself do it.
Of course.
I do for and get any enjoyment out of. So yeah, that's kind of where I was, and so I started networking. Okay, but I kind of cheated too. So in the sense that I was the commander of the squadron, and we were still doing real world missions like most of the time. So it was kind of cool. We were kind of a different flavor for a guard unit, because we were constantly doing real world missions, but we were doing them at home station. So half our guys were on full-time orders, either training or doing real world missions. And then the other half were DSGs. So the 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. So they came in, and I'd leverage them. When I was the commander, I was like, hey, I got smart guys out there doing smart things. And so I would just start asking them, for help with the squadron. Like, hey, one guy, he has a degree in like management engineering. And so when I took the helm, I was like, hey, Jordan, come here. I need some help. All I know is a military way. What's the right way that we should, how we should be doing this? What's a better way to do this stuff? And we kind of went through and revamped our whole management, our whole operating system within the squadron and the group at that time. Became a group. He showed me this whole new tier system, how to work things with huddles, eliminate meetings, make things more efficient, give people more time to actually do the work and the training that they needed to. And we did it. We just crushed it. We went out there and just did a bunch. And I had a lot of fun. I just had fun going out, figuring out new things and taking on new projects, getting new mission sets that actually excited our folks. And in that process, I was just networking. And it turns out the actual guy that I had come in and helped me revamp my whole, the whole squadron, the whole group's operating system. He'd been applying for FBI billets, and so he got accepted the same time that I was getting out. He was leaving, and he'd actually taken me down to his job, which he worked at at a health insurance company, a local here in Utah. And he took me down there to show me they just had done this whole new like agile operating system. employed. And that's what I copied and used in my group. And when I was leaving, he told his boss, he's like, hey, this guy's getting out of the Air Force and he just implemented what we've been trying to do and he did it better than we're doing it. He might be a good replacement for me when I step out because he knows how to run this stuff. And so they reached out to me. And so my transition that way was pretty easy, even though I had no idea. I was like, well, I was doing intelligence. This is insurance. They both start with IN. That's pretty close. Let's go. Right. So,
right.
So
they're all data driven too. I think that's the better comparison there, right? Like insurance is a data driven industry and so is Intel, right? Like you're collecting data, you're sifting through data. Same thing with insurance. You're collecting data on prospects, sifting through that data to find out who the best qualified buyer is.
Yeah. And our role was a bit different. We were more the provider facing one. So we were building out the networks.
Okay.
So we were like getting the providers on contract with us that we needed so the members could go see him. And that was the role that I had, was running a team that did that, called provider relations contract.
I think you're on to something. And I think this is an important lesson for those that are listening is the way that you went about your transition and realizing upfront the networking piece is so important. And I think guys in your position who are a part of the Guard or Reserves, where you're with a group of guys who have likely have regular jobs outside of the military, you can leverage that, and you can leverage that a lot in your network because you just talk to them about what they do in civilian life if that interests you. So it's like a jumping off point to explore versus like, me, all I knew from 17 to 30 years old was how to be an infantryman. I didn't talk to anybody really outside of the military. The civilian friends I had were largely in retail jobs. I knew that wasn't for me. I didn't know any, actual career kind of people, to really network with. And so I want people who are listening to this to understand, I think you went about it the absolute right way by talking to those, I assume you're in a command spot. It's cool that you sought counsel from your subordinates because they are smart people, particularly in the intel field, right? There is a treasure trove of opportunity there for you if you're willing to see it and to exploit it by just getting out of your own comfort zone and asking questions. So kudos to you, and thanks for presenting such a powerful lesson to those that are listening.
Thank you. It was, I don't think much about it. I just wanted help, and these were the smart guys to do it. And I don't know if it was because of my enlisted background or what, but I never looked at enlisted as different than officers. I just looked at us as different jobs. It was my job. That was their job. But I always looked at us as equal. And I don't care. I mean, if you were smart, if you could be helpful, then I was going to try to, one, help you, and two, learn from you and see what you could do to help the unit. So it was more because I didn't. Awesome resources. I didn't want to. And to your point, networking, it was huge, and I kind of had an easy way to do it, so I just did it. But I think even if I would have been on active duty, I think the key then is to just leverage whatever external networks you might have out there, because you have buddies that have retired and moved on to other jobs. Stay in touch with them, ask them how they're doing, follow them on LinkedIn, right? And comment, and just start seeing what's happening. If you have kids and volunteer to coach their little league teams. I had connections through people. I still have friendships and connections now that I still stay in touch with that have led to jobs for me and for others. That because we both coached our kids in a sport, right? So I know them.
You raise such valid points. The only kind of pushback I'll give you on that is it kind of requires foresight to leverage those buddies that retired or got out. I didn't do that. I didn't have the foresight to look into that. I was very narrow-minded and thinking I'm just going to make it to 22 years and then I'll figure it out from there. And you raise another valid point by saying go coach your kids' teams or get involved in the community. If you really approach it that way, every place that you go becomes a networking event. Absolutely. Everywhere you go. And I'm really leaning hard into that in everything that I do with the nonprofit, this business, everything now. It's like, if you just get out of your own way and just start talking to people, you will add so many people, valuable people to your network. It's not even funny. And you don't even understand the power that comes with. I mean, I truly now understand the cliche, saying that your network is your net worth. I understand that 1,000% now.
Yeah, exactly. And the right way to do it isn't just to go and ask people for things, right? And
no, never, ever. Just be a genuine human. Be who you are. Be curious about them. Ask, really their leading questions, but just curious questions. Like, be a normal human. Like, you want to make a new friend, and watch what happens when you start approaching conversation like that. I did it the other day. I was at Sam's Club picking up some stuff, and I saw a guy wearing a local Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym here shirt. And I just was like, hey man, like, I'm pretty new to Florida. Like, I'm looking to get into Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I had a back surgery last year. Like, how is the program here? Like, is it accommodating? And that turned into a 25-minute conversation in aisle 4 of Sam's Club. And, ends up like, hey man, give me your phone number. Hopefully I'll see you there, kind of thing. Right. Like, it's everywhere you go is a networking opportunity if you just approach it the right way. So I love that you pointed that out.
You hit on something I think is huge. Maybe you don't have a family, right? Maybe you don't get lots of opportunities, but there's little communities out there, and BJJ is one of my favorites. That is such a brotherhood and sisterhood. I know girls that do it too. Go to a gym and sign up, even if you don't love it. Just go do it, and you will get an automatic network of people that are caring about you. That you're teaching you something, and you'll just form relationships there that, in an instant, like, it takes one session and you're going to come out with friends.
It's to your point. It doesn't even have to be a BJJ gym. Like, I'm also a member of Crunch Fitness, right? And my second day back in the gym after back surgery, this guy walks up to me, asks me about the shirt I'm wearing. Turns out I get his phone number. We're now friends, and meet each other at the gym at specific days of the week and do workouts together. And he happens to be a pastor who can help me spread a message about what I'm doing with the nonprofit. He's also a veteran. It's really cool how, when you open your mind to just adding people to your network because they could potentially be valuable to you later, with no intention or want for anything other than just adding people to your network, it just becomes this powerful tool.
Yeah. And you're right. And even if it's not comfortable, do it anyway. Right?
Yep. And you can do this anywhere: the gym, the car dealership when you're buying a new car. Think about the places you regularly visit, the faces. I guarantee you go to the same grocery store every time you go grocery shopping. And I bet you, if you're not paying attention, you will after hearing this. I bet you see the same faces when you go to that grocery store. I know there's a high turnover at a grocery store. It's usually young kids, but I'm sure there are career people in that grocery store that you see all the time. It's a networking opportunity. How are you going to use that? I don't know. I have no idea, but at least you have that option. Put them in the Rolodex. If you people even know what a Rolodex is anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think if you're just looking at it, just try to grow with friends. I don't like to say networking because that sounds almost like, what's the word? Like, I'm just trying to use people. I just try to grow my friends, right? And the more friends I make, the better my life is. And opportunities will naturally surface the more friends you get. And you just reach out. And LinkedIn's awesome for this. Like, I've had conversations with lots of guys with vets that they just reach out. I'm like, hey, I like the stuff you put on LinkedIn. Can we talk? I'm like, bro, let's talk. Let's all hear.
Yes.
Tell me everything you can about who you are. I want to learn what you're about. And I get excited. Get excited for people too. When they're working on something fun or something that excites them, get excited with them. Figure out how to add value to what they're trying to do. And it's funny because with ThetaCore, where I'm at now, I hit a couple things before I hit here, but it all started in that first job with that health insurance company, which I'll get back to in a second. But we went to a nonprofit event that was about suicide prevention. So we showed up there, met some people there, and the person there introduced us to another person. That person introduced us to another person, and we just go do lunch with them, meet them. Who introduced us to another person, who then introduces somebody else out in DC, who then introduced us to this other person who is now like this major driver in helping us get into different places that we never imagined we would ever get into before. But it was just this chain of networking. And all we did was go to these things, say hi, tell people where our mission was, get excited about their mission. And things just have naturally progressed, and it just happens. And you're just like, wow, all you got to do is talk to people.
And it's such a perfect segue into what you're doing with ThetaCore now and how I found you. I was in Utah, and I was in Phoenix in July of this year. And I had Anthony Towndra on the show, my third episode ever. Shout out to him for taking a chance on me and willing to come on. But he picked me up from the airport in Phoenix and spent the entire day with me, just chilling, talking, just really building that brotherhood or that bond or whatever. And it was like, we're two peas in a pod, like just very on the same spectrum, wavelength, whatever. And as he was leaving, he showed me ThetaCore and your app. And he was like, you should really reach out to Jake and have him on the show. And so I can't remember exactly how it happened, but it's just a testament to LinkedIn. That's how we met. We got together. You then saw my post from Utah, like, hey man, I wish you would have hit me up while you were in Utah. And it's like, yeah, dude, sorry. Like I hadn't I talked to so many people. It's like really hard to keep up with where everybody's at and like who's there. If I had more foresight, I would have been like, hey, I'm going to be in Utah this week. Anybody who's out there that's in my network, let's meet up. You know what I mean? Lesson learned. I'll do that next time. But, it's just a testament to building the network. So let's talk about ThetaCore and what you're doing, because I'm so proud to know you and know that you're stepping up and continuing to lead out there to do something about the suicide epidemic that plagues our brothers and sisters, just like I'm doing. That's the whole reason I have this show. It's the whole reason I'm involved with the nonprofit. And it's such important work that I don't think people really understand how bad it is. Like the 22 a day you're hearing, double that. That's more realistic. And then let's not even move into the first responders. It's like 1 every 17 minutes from first responders is taking their own lives, right? So this is an incredibly lofty, worthy cause to be creating an application around, or, even with our nonprofit, we've created the application and then moving into aftercare. And so let's talk about ThetaCore, what it is, how you came up with the idea. Cause I know you said there were some things while you're working at the health insurance company that kind of led up to the founding of ThetaCore. Also the leveraging of the network that opened doors for you that you didn't know existed probably.
Right. Yeah, ThetaCore, I wish I could claim it as my brainchild. It's not. I just adopted it. I adopted ThetaCore as mine, and I embraced it because I love what it does. But let me go back to my job at the health insurance company. I was responsible for building out the networks for primary care providers. And my buddy there, Zach Bullock, now Dr. Zach Bullock, he's a doctor of behavioral health. He was responsible. He was like lateral to me, manager that was responsible for building out the behavioral health networks. And one thing the health insurance company was trying to do is to get more medical and behavioral health providers to combine to do integrated healthcare, right? So he start treating the person as a whole person and not in different pieces. Not the medical piece and behavioral; they're all the same. So there was a big effort to do more integrated care and to incentivize, to try to figure out how to incentivize more providers. We'll build out that behavioral health network and then try to get medical and behavioral health providers to start working together. So Zach and I teamed up there a bunch, and we became really good friends there, working on these projects together, and we both became passionate about it. I mean, it wasn't a passion that I had coming into that job. It's when I grew, as I was there going, hey, this is important. People need this. They need both pieces of healthcare. Well, Zach took off and left and went to build ThetaCore. We talked about it a lot, and actually, I was actually part of the initial discussion. We called it the chicken coop. A few of us would meet in a shed next to his house, where he was actually a practicing therapist, and he would do therapy in this shed he had built for that. We called it a chicken coop, and we meet there and we'd ideate, brainstorm how we could do this, what could we do. We have to have technology. We got to be able to figure out how to get this into the hands of everyday users. And then he left and started doing it full time, and I was still at Select Health for another year. Then I left and went to another company that was more into like healthcare IT systems. And I was there for a year and a half. And then Zach reached out back to me and said we'd stay in contact every few months. We would just do lunch or something and see how things were going. And he reached out to me and said, hey, our investor wants to go into the military. He wants to go help military and veterans. So we built out this whole app. And now but the people at the time weren't military. Nobody here was military. So I said, well, let's do it. And so he brought me in to kind of help us get us in the military. And I still don't know what that means. We're startups, so I still don't know what that means. But hey, you're military. You know people. Come and just help us figure out how to get this in the military. So I said, all right, let's do this. So I left the job I had before, came here, and the whole basic what ThetaCore is. It's a platform. It is a web-based app. You get to it on your computer, but also on your phone. And it's a web-based platform where it combines behavioral health. Behavioral health methodologies, practices, and statistics. Zach also taught statistics in college when he was before he came to the health insurance company. So he's a statistician, very, very good at it. So we combined those two things to say, hey, let's take the soft science and the hard science, put them together so we can actually see things, measure them, and improve them. And that's when ThetaCore was born. He actually tested out in a prison system. So what some of the algorithms that we have.
That's awesome, man. So what are some of the strategies that ThetaCore uses to foster that connection and emotional intelligence, in the veteran community, and kind of what can users expect to gain from actually using the application or the web-based application?
Yeah, it's a great question. It in essence is going to help people connect. So, but it's not an open network. It's not like, social media where you just connect with anyone. You either have to text or email someone the code or show them your QR code on your phone. So it has to be people you know. Or if an organization is using it, then everybody in the organization will get a link to get onto that one central circle. And then you have check-ins. So you have these check-ins that are based off social determinants of health, something we learned about in the health insurance world. Off your, we have overall, we have mental, we have physical, we have spiritual, we have home, we have work, and we have school for whoever might be using it. And the check-ins are simple. They're smiley faces, right? The universal language of smiley faces. So if you're super smiley, hit super smiley. If you're super frowny, hit super frowny, right? So you have these things for a little bit of self-awareness. You just check in, takes a few seconds. You can upload a picture if you want. We added that just to make it a little more interesting. So I like to upload pictures. Usually they're of mountains and hikes because I love those. Just to make it interesting. And also, sometimes a picture will tell you a lot about where someone's at, right? Depending on what they're sending you pictures of. It tells you what's important to them and stuff. So it's kind of helpful to just get to know people that way. But there's an algorithm there that will if you hit certain criteria within the algorithm, it'll trigger on a priority list. And what that means is that everybody in your circle, in your friends and family circle, your personal circle, will get a notification that says, hey, reach out to Jake. It doesn't say why. It just says, hey, you might want to reach out to Jake. He might need you to reach out to him. And so then you'll know, hey, you can reach out through the app. You can reach out through a text, call, in person, whatever you can do. Just reach out to that person. And then you can kind of help people that are struggling. And it gives people a way to ask for help without asking for help, if that makes sense. So you and I both know as veterans, men for one, two as veterans, we don't like to admit
ever.
Right.
Ever. Yeah.
It's hard for us, right?
Well, it's I don't know how it was for you. When I came in, it was very much ingrained in me that you don't ask for help. I watch guys lose careers for seeking help. It just wasn't something that you do. I don't know how your experience was, but that was very much my infantry experience, is just compartmentalize that shit and continue mission. Like that's really it.
Oh, for sure. Especially in the intel world, right? Where your clearance is everything.
Yeah. And I love how you're selling this, and you're not selling it. Obviously you're just explaining what it is, but the selling point of this is that it's confidential. It's like our QRFup.org application. When you're in crisis, you're eliminating the element of really embarrassment, because it's all, for lack of a better term, compartmentalized information that nobody else has access to except for the responding therapist and then the mobile crisis response team, who is, potentially going to show up if that's necessary, right? And so you don't have that stigma or that embarrassment of feeling weak because you need to ask for help in that moment. You just literally open the app, push a big red button, and tell whoever's on the other end of that phone what's going on with you. And I really do think that that's key to making the biggest impact in this space, is really eliminating that. And oh, by the way, with our application, I don't know if ThetaCore is going to do this, but our therapists are going to get access to be able to upload all of this into My Healthy Vet for continuity of care. So yeah, like there's some really cool stuff that you can do with this. And then that way we have that continuity of care. You're not being bounced around to other therapists. And this is obviously about you. It's not about what I'm doing with QRF Up, but there's so many similarities between what we're doing. So I just kind of wanted to point out, eliminating that embarrassing element of our perceptions of feeling weak and asking for help, and the weakness that comes from the first time you step out of your comfort zone and become vulnerable and put yourself out there. It's kind of privatized in that way. And I think that's really a big key.
Right. That way you can sidestep the whole stigma issue.
Yep.
So,
yep.
I love what QRF is doing. I need to learn more about it. I only know surface level stuff, but I need to dig into that, because probably some areas where we should be working together as well, because we can resources.
We're gonna have to get you on a call with the rest of the board and figure out how we can come together, because I don't know why I've spaced this until like right now, but obviously there's a lot of similarities here, and I do think that we should work together on this. It's going to take all of us as a community working together to solve this problem. We're not going to be able to do it on individual bases, and there's no reason to compete. We can all come together and really tackle this problem together. So yeah, absolutely, we need to do that.
I look at nothing that's out there as competition. I look at it as brothers in the same mission. So
because at the end of the day, you can't help them all. I can't help them all. QRF Up can't help them all. But collectively, we can all come together and we can help them all. And that's the reality of it. So, because different modalities are going to work differently for different people. And so your approach with ThetaCore is definitely going to be different than our approach with QRF Up, but that doesn't mean that we can't present you as an option if QRF Up doesn't resonate with you, but ThetaCore does. You know what I mean? And I think that's the important part that people are missing here.
And I think we're hitting different parts of the spectrum too that are very complementary, because ThetaCore is non-clinical. So right. we don't involve. We can involve therapists, but therapists are not who are main. That's not who.
Of course, right. And the difference is our mission. Our mission is crisis intervention up front, aftercare second, right? Yours is more long-term kind of self-awareness, emotional intelligence, kind of actually doing the work, not de-escalation, if you will. I mean, I'm sure there's an element of de-escalation to it, but whereas QRF Up is immediate de-escalation right now.
Right. That's why I think we're an awesome complement, because we're leveraging your support network that you have around you every day, your family, your friends, your coworkers. That's who we're leveraging because one, there's not enough therapists out there anyway. So if we can kind of help therapists out a little bit by helping people, saving the hard things for them, right? The more intense things for them, and let us kind of help people keep people healthy. So the way I like to explain it is, and the party list is kind of like that safety net where QRF is like that safety net that goes across the waterfall, right? And suicide is the waterfall. So we're trying to catch people before they get off the waterfall. But what we're trying to do with ThetaCore as well is, let's get upstream and let's see if we can stop people from falling into the river first, right? And the fewer people we can stop falling into the river is the less work we'll have to do down here, which will take the pressure off the therapists and those people down there and help people out. So that's what we're kind of trying to do. There's self-help stuff within ThetaCore as well. But there's also other stuff that helps you learn how to talk to people, right? And
which is so important.
Exactly. It's a quick little personality assessment, but we use it to pull out, hey, how do you like to communicate, your communication preferences. So we've had couples take it, like husbands and wives, and they get it and they're like, oh, this is
who I
every time I talk to them. And they're
man.
Oh. And it's funny because Zach, he's the one that developed it. he gets so irritated at his wife when she uses it on him. Because he'll be like, wait a minute, you're using our stuff on me.
Yeah,
and it's working. He's like, it is. Dang you. He's so funny.
Awesome stuff you're doing out there, Jake. We've run out of time here, so I want to make sure we get people to the right place. If they're looking to find out more information about ThetaCore, to connect with you, put all your socials out there, websites, any of that stuff. Make sure that we can, funnel some of this traffic back to you, because if my stuff doesn't resonate with you, maybe Jake's stuff does, and so on and so forth. Also, what an awesome person to have in your network. He and I message on a pretty consistent basis. It's really awesome to be connected with you, man, and I love the work that you're doing. So I want other people to experience that with you as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. I love the work you're doing. And like I said, we're all in this together. We got brothers and sisters in arms that have worn the uniform, that are wearing the uniform, that need our help. And it's an honor to be in the fight still with you and with the other awesome people out there doing this work.
Yeah, brother, but you got to tell them where they can find you, man.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's the important part here.
You can look it up. At ThetaCore.com, ThetaCore, ThetaCore, like brainwaves, ThetaCore.com. Or you look it up, you just download the app. There's a free version of the app where you can connect with family and friends at no cost and start building your network now. And that's ThetaCore TC Connect. It's on both the Google and Apple stores. So you can just download the app and get going on it, and give us feedback. We always want to make it better. So please get on it, use it, give me feedback, and reach out to me at any time. Jake Ray on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest. I'm on there every day. So much to my chagrin, but hey, it's the best social media site out there that has a purpose. So hence I use it. But reach out. I love to connect, love to talk to people, and love to help wherever I can.
I love it, man. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mr. Jake Ray. Please like, rate, subscribe, review, download this episode, share it with everybody in your network. Help us reach the goal of getting this in front of 1 million veterans and just saving another life. Until next week, we will, keep doing the thing, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Take care, everybody. Jake, thanks for being here, brother. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at The Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity, or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources, or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.